it's happening. It's not build that wall anymore. It's continue building that wall because we're building.
I have not called for the harm of anybody.
If you see anybody from that cabinet, you push back on them.
If she continues to double down, the House ought to take up a motion to censure her, because this does lead to violence.
President Trump demanding infamous FBI agent Peter Strzok publicly face the American people.
The hearing of Peter Strzok and the other hating frauds at the FBI and DOJ should be shown to the public.
51% approve of how our commander-in-chief is handling the economy.
That is a record in a CNBC poll.
If a horrible thing happened and we weren't lucky enough to have Henry win, they will say Donald Trump suffered a major defeat. So please get your out tomorrow and vote.
It's Tuesday, as you can see right there. It is the 26th day of June, and Brian Kilmeade is back today.
Yes.
Here on the couch.
Yes.
Where did you go?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk a lot about it. We're all going to be doing some stuff with Fox Nation, which is coming out soon.
And we're shooting some
so I will
stories.
tell you that when you see what I saw, when I show you guys in the break, you're going to be amazed. But it was really a working day.
Oh, that's a little...
It was a working day. Steve will be doing, you guys will be doing it too.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. So we don't know where he was, so eventually we will reveal the mystery.
But I'll tell you, by keeping in touch, by meeting so many Americans from the Midwest, I'll give you that away, I've been kept up with the news. They were briefing me along the way for the last 2 days.
That's kind of sad, because we're actually doing the news for the people in the Midwest, too.
Right, no, absolutely.
So you went out to
But
the
they
Midwest. You went out to Steve's neck of the woods. What'd you think of his people?
His people are our people.
They're very nice, aren't they?
They're extremely nice.
Well, the president was down in my neck of the woods last night. He was in South Carolina, West Columbia, a high school called Airport High School, and he had a rally. He is there trying to encourage people to go to the polls today to vote for the incumbent South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, he's in a tight race with a guy named John Warren.
Right. What's so interesting is that the president was stuck on his plane because of weather for a while. So we got a few very direct tweets for various parts of.
Hey, Mark Warner.
Yeah. Hey, Mark Warner. Some little announcement he made in Martha's Vineyard, and he took care of a few things and said, "I am not letting the people of South Carolina down. I'm going out there and I'm covering everything. The only thing that was there, just ornaments, were his teleprompters."
So typically, Donald Trump, who went there to endorse Henry McMaster, wound up talking about a lot of stuff. If you missed it, we ran it all last night. But here are some of the highlights.
It is great to be with you. This is a very special state. I love this state. We're going to start winning again. We're winning. We're winning now. We're winning with our military. Our military is now being built up like you wouldn't believe. We're winning on trade. We're defending our borders. Because if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. It's not build that wall anymore. It's continue building that wall. Because we're building. But Democrats, they want open borders and they don't mind crime. We are lifting millions and millions of Americans from welfare to work. From dependence to independence and from poverty to prosperity. We're not looking up in the air. Any rockets up there? Any rockets? There's been no rocket tests. There's been no nuclear tests. There's been no ballistic missiles. The world is going to be a much safer place. And North Korea is going to be a much better place. If a horrible thing happened and we weren't lucky enough to have Henry win, you know they won't talk about that. They will say Donald Trump suffered a major defeat. So please get your out tomorrow and vote.
Mr. President, there are children in the audience. So, something else he did mention these two names together, Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi. And of course, as he was rallying the crowd, regarding Maxine Waters, he had some tweets out yesterday. And the reason she's in the news, if you weren't with us yesterday, is she has urged supporters, particularly on Saturday over the weekend in Los Angeles, to get in the face of anybody in the cabinet or Trump supporters or surrogates and things like that. There have since been calls, maybe she went too far. Maxine, maybe you went too far. At least that was from the president. But nonetheless, yesterday, she doubled down.
I have not called for the harm of anybody. This president has lied again. And so our members of the Democratic caucus are talking about civility, and that makes good sense. But protest is civility. Protest is about peaceful resistance to the kind of actions that we're experiencing from this president.
This president will try to do everything to divert our attention. He calls me names. He calls everybody names. As a matter of fact, we expect that from him. I've said nothing like that.
Right.
I've talked about peaceful protest.
Right.
Well, she did use the word harass on MSNBC. I watched the interview over the weekend, but now she's saying, I didn't say, I'm not calling for violence, calling for peaceful protest, which is good. But there are some of her Democratic colleagues that are denouncing her, that are distancing themselves from her, including Chuck Schumer. Listen to this.
If you disagree with someone or something, stand up, make your voice heard, explain why you think they're wrong and why you're right. Make the argument. Protest peacefully. If you disagree with a politician, organize your fellow citizens to action and vote them out of office. But no one should call for the harassment of political opponents. That's not right. That's not American.
And I give him so much credit for doing that. It is so important for him not only to do that, but I give him credit for doing it where he did it. It means a lot. Number two, I also think that people have to understand they're actually following these secretaries to their homes. They're stopping them from going to restaurants. They're stopping Pam Bondi in Florida, where she's Attorney General, from watching a movie. And if you think it's going to stop, forget it. Unless people like Chuck Schumer do that, and Nancy Pelosi kind of does that, goes about halfway, says this: in the crucial months ahead, we strive to make America beautiful again. Trump's daily lack of civility has provoked responses that are predictable but unacceptable. As we go forward, we must conduct elections in a way that achieves unity from sea to shining sea. And I just think it's important for Republicans not to do the same thing to Democrats.
Yes.
Just stop it. I mean, just say, well, they start, it's enough. Act like an adult. You're going to get nobody serving in government at any level.
That's right.
Because they don't want to sacrifice their family and futures. You don't do it to get rich. You don't do it to get famous. It's supposed to be service. And the type of people you're going to get serving are not going to be the Benjamin Franklins and Thomas Jeffersons. It's going to be people out there for all the wrong reasons. So Republicans got to stop it.
Ultimately, though, what will stop it is the Democrats saying, hey, you know what, this is going to backfire on us. Because ultimately, it could lead to sympathy for Trump officials. It could rally the midterm Republicans as well. And, of course, there's always the worry that it would, what they're doing, the other side would do to them. Listen, Stephen Miller, who is one of the president's #1 policy advisors, he was with the president last night in South Carolina, and yet, as you can see right there, there's a protest, 20 people in front of his house at City Center in Washington, D.C., and they also put up a number of wanted posters, and on the wanted posters with Stephen Miller's name, it described him as a white nationalist, Trump lackey, an architect of both the Muslim ban and family separation. It says guilty of kidnapping 2,500 children, crimes against humanity.
Wow.
Unbelievable. But, Steve, I'm going to go back to your earlier point. 100% right. As outrageous as it is, you know what you're doing, Democrats? Right. You are mobilizing a base, which an American tradition goes dormant during the midterm.
Listen to this. The lead editorial in the New York Daily News, which hates Donald Trump, talks about, but the last line is, hounding officials in their private lives gives them and the president exactly what they want: the ability to cast themselves as victims of oppression in a country where they control the levers of power. Don't go down that road. The LA Times has a similar editorial as well. This could backfire on Democrats if they keep it up.
And it can incite violence eventually.
That's the worry.
If someone approaches your family, you're going to want to defend yourself. If they're yelling nasty comments to you about your politics in front of your kids, it's humiliating.
Look at that guy who was I believe a Bernie Sanders supporter last year, went about a year ago to that ball field out in Alexandria, Virginia, and tried to kill as many Republicans as he could.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
That's the worry.
Yeah, I just say that's really was the theme throughout my 2 cities that I've just been in. Was we're gonna find out where Peter Strzok lives. I go, guys, you got to calm down. Because you can't start doing this. These people are serving. They're being adjudicated in any way possible. They're doing their job. You may agree or disagree. You have to be able to live your life and go to a mall with your family.
Well, isn't it bullying?
Or else it's
bullying.
Yeah,
if you don't agree with Sarah Huckabee Sanders for working for the president, and you go find her at a restaurant, or you kick her out of the restaurant, and then apparently the protesters, she left with her husband. The rest of her family went across the street to another restaurant, and the manager of that restaurant, I heard last night, came over and followed them and continued to harass her. It's bullying. It's harassing, and yes, it can incite violence eventually, because this is just going to boil over. People are getting mad. The pot is boiling, and eventually it's going to come to a head.
The Wall Street Journal also has an article, another editorial talking about, Hillary Clinton made the mistake of calling people who supported Trump deplorables. Ultimately, the Wall Street Journal says that essentially the message to deplorables is you can't even go out to eat. Yeah. Really? Is that the America you want? And so that's going to rally people to go to the midterms.
You know where your power is? Your power is voting. If you don't like this administration, then you can go to the polls in 3 years or 2 years. That's where you have the power.
What if you want to show your support for Jillian? Where do you go? I mean, you do go to a restaurant
right here.
or you just
don't
pause to it?
change the channel.
Right. Okay, good. Hey,
good morning. Just be nice to each other.
Right?
Right,
Like, is it that hard?
So
It'll start with you and Rob in the morning. Be nicer to each other.
All right, we will.
Yeah, so apparently he hates Tuesdays.
Yes, he hates Tuesdays. Good morning to you guys. Do you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on your news. The man accused of ambushing and killing a fire captain expected to face a judge today. 77-year-old Thomas Kim charged with murdering Captain David Rosa. Police say Kim set a fire at his retirement home to lure first responders, then opened fire when they arrived.
Firefighters across the region, across our state, and across our country right now are putting themselves in harm's way in service to their community. Captain Rosa answered that call this morning of service to his community, and he paid the ultimate sacrifice.
A candlelight vigil held overnight outside Captain Rosa's firehouse in Long Beach, California. He leaves behind a wife and 2 kids. A second firefighter was also shot, but will be okay. Secretary of Defense James Mattis touching down in Beijing overnight as tensions rise with China. He is expected to press Chinese leaders over a number of critical issues, including its aggressive military presence in the South China Sea and ongoing peace negotiations with North Korea. Mattis is the first Pentagon chief to visit China since 2014. He's also planning stops in Japan and South Korea. Voters hitting the polls in 7 states today. Candidates hoping for victories in runoffs and primaries. In Utah, Mitt Romney is up against Republican challenger Mike Kennedy. Both of them forced into a GOP Senate primary after neither won enough votes to secure the nomination at the state GOP convention in April. And convicted leaker Chelsea Manning on the ballot in Maryland. She's challenging Senator Ben Cardin in the Democratic Party. The feud between President Trump and Jimmy Fallon is heating up. Trump lashing out at the late-night host after he apologized for playing with his hair before the election. Fallon said it humanized him.
Jimmy Fallon apologized. He apologized for humanizing me. The poor guy. He's lost. He looks like a lost soul.
Fallon, as you can imagine, then firing back on his show.
When I saw that Trump insulted me on Twitter, I was going to tweet back immediately, but I thought I had more important things to do. Then I thought, wait, shouldn't he have more important things to do?
President Trump says Fallon should be thankful for the ratings from his 2016 interview.
Yeah,
send it to you.
He took on every single late night host last night. He started with Fallon, then went to Kimmel, and that guy on CBS.
Apparently a restless night of sleep.
Right. But it's usually there's a strategy behind it.
He said if you have fake hair, don't run for president.
That's right. It's got to be real. All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, remember that intern who cursed at President Trump on Capitol Hill last week?
Yes.
We just found out who she is, and guess what? She did not get fired.
Plus, will the left's strategy to condone Maxine Waters end up backfiring? We're going to discuss it with important people like Jessica Tarlov. She'll be weighing in because she came all the way, got up early this morning. Good morning.
Even top-level Democrats now condemning Maxine Waters after she called on supporters to harass Trump administration officials. But has the damage already been done? Here to react is Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. Jessica, thank you for being with us. Is it going to backfire on the Democratic Party?
Backfire
backfire, I think, is a strong word, and I apologize for my voice. I think it was appropriate that Nancy Pelosi came out against this, and there have been other top-level Democrats who say this is not how we do business. She didn't call for violence, by the way. That wasn't explicit in what she said there. But Democrats are really having a difficult time dealing with the civility issue because President Trump did win doing that. He even had an aggressive tweet to Maxine Waters yesterday saying, be careful what you wish for. Mm-hmm. He has said he'd pay the legal fees for people who hurt protesters. He said things like, I want to punch him in the face. He said there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville after somebody died. This is not a president who's afraid to condone violence himself. So it's incredibly difficult for us to say, oh, Maxine Waters is a huge problem, and then see that Donald Trump gets away with this, scot-free.
How did we get to this point? Are Democrats, are they feeling like they've been pushed into a corner? Republicans feeling like they've been pushed into a corner? So now both sides are just getting angry?
I think both sides have been angry a long time. I think this precedes Trump. I think he exacerbated it, and he was right when he said that he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and not lose his base. The question is whether he loses that 15% on top that he needs to win an election in those key states. It's disappointing. No one wants to see anyone harassed, kicked out of a restaurant, but we do want discourse about what's going on in this country, the policies that are being implemented that are dangerous and un-American. And I'm not sure how we get to a point where we can do that again without Maxine Waters talk and President Trump talk.
Right. I've heard many people say that the Democratic Party is the party of tolerance, yet they're preaching intolerance to Sarah Huckabee's face, to Kristen Nielsen, to Pam Bondi, now to Stephen Miller. I was proud of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi for saying they're condemning this because our fear is, as a country, this is just going to get worse, and then it's going to eventually lead to violence.
We're past violence, I think. And as I said, bringing up Charlottesville there, what has gone on at some of these rallies, and you see some of the aggressive T-shirts, for instance, that exist on both sides, but they're, famous Trump supporter T-shirt that says, F your feelings, for instance. Even the chant, lock her up, is fundamentally violent, right? To throw someone in jail, which it shows up at every Trump rally. Our leadership, I thank them for condemning this, and we don't want to be the party of that. But Democrats also have to think, do we want to be the ones that are constantly held to a standard that the other party isn't? And we lost 1,000 seats under Barack Obama being the party of civility and tolerance.
Republicans going up to anyone in President Obama's administration at a restaurant and harassing them and humiliating them in front of their family. We've gotten to a point now, it's beyond.
It is beyond. What went on in the Red Hen was, a question about the LGBTQ policies. But again, I don't condone it. Have a peaceful conversation. Thank you.
Good message. More Fox and Friends coming up.
Now let's get started. After years of freedom, the man accused of being Osama bin Laden's bodyguard could finally be facing justice. He's been living in Germany for years on welfare benefits. The country had been trying to kick him out, but a court ruled he might face torture in his home country and must be protected. That ruling just reversed. Now he's got a one-way ticket to Tunisia. Who's kidding who? He'll be hailed as a hero. Prince William making history in Israel. The Duke of Cambridge stepping off the plane in Tel Aviv for the first time ever. We have an official visit by a member of the British royal family. He will visit both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas on his 3-day trip. Steve.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. From President Trump firing up the crowd down in South Carolina last night to Maxine Waters calling on the anti-Trump resistance to, quote, push back on anyone in the president's cabinet, we're dialing up the biggest highlights of the week that could possibly get President Trump reelected. Here with the dials, president and partner with Ms. Lansky and Partners, Lee Carter. Lee, thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Lee's been burning the midnight oil because after the president made his comments in West Virginia, you put before your 4,000 people in your focus group a bunch of important questions.
That's right. So we tested the speech last night along with some of the key moments from the celebrity forces out there as well.
All right, first soundbite. Folks, watch the dial numbers. Remember, red is Republican, blue is Democrat, and yellow are the independents. Here's the president talking about America's workforce.
We are doing so well. We are lifting millions and millions of Americans from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity. Right? We're putting new American steel into the spine of our country and breathing new hope into our beautiful communities.
Well, the red went off the chart.
It sure did there. Republicans gave this an A+, independents a B+, and Democrats an F. I was somewhat surprised that the president did as well as he did, having such a tough week last week and all the criticism that he got. This message, though, talking about his successes, how we're lifting millions and millions of Americans from welfare to work, about getting the economy going. This is why the president was elected. Promises made, promises kept on this particular front. This is where he focused, and even independents come along for the ride on this one. They are hard on certain things, but this is where he really shines.
All right. Meanwhile, somebody who is running for governor here in the great state of New York is Cynthia Nixon. You remember her from that TV show, Sex and the City. Here's a soundbite. Watch the dials as she calls for the abolition of ICE.
I think we need to abolish ICE. That seems really clear. ICE is relatively new. It came in after September 11th. We've been handling immigration and customs for a long time here. They have strayed so far from the interests of the American people and the interests of humanity. We need to abolish it.
Well, Dems don't give it an A, but they do give it a B.
They do give it a B. You can see that. Independents gave it a D. Republicans a D-. Here's the thing, and this happens with a lot of Democrat candidates right now. They presume that people agree with them. So you can see that she said, it seems really clear. I think we need to abolish ICE. Well, you know what? Not everybody agrees with her. And so you see instantly that people dial down. This is a tool that people need to learn. If you have a position, don't assume people are with you. Explain it, give context. This was a losing message for her.
All right. What about Maxine Waters? Was this a losing message? Here she is calling on Americans to intimidate members of the Trump cabinet.
You see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Independents dove with the Republicans on that. I was watching your dial.
Yeah, they sure did. You could see Republicans and independents both gave this an F. Democrats gave this a C. Now, there are some Democrats who agree that we should be going out and protesting against the administration. For the most part, though, what we heard from voters is this kind of rhetoric is unacceptable. Now, Maxine Waters tried to clarify and say, look, I'm looking for peaceful resistance. That's not what people heard. People heard that this was encouraging a mob mentality. This was completely not meant to be civil. While not everybody heard violence, they did hear things that were not so nice. And what people are longing for is some kind of a civil discourse. I think people want the president and they want Congress and bipartisan conversations. They want people to come back together, and people are tired of this resist, resist, resist. This kind of behavior is the biggest gift the Democrats can give to Republicans right now. The redhead kind of thing we've been hearing, Republicans are really likely to support the president after hearing things like this.
So in other words, if the Democrats and people on the political left keep that stuff up, it's a slam dunk for Trump.
That's absolutely right. And we saw that in the general election as well.
All right. Lee Carter, thank you very much.
Anytime.
All right. Meanwhile, you've seen President Trump wear it all over the country, but one bar says you're not welcome if you wear that cap. Where is that? We're going to tell you about that. And disgraced FBI agent Peter Strzok set to testify behind closed doors on Capitol Hill, but the president wants everybody to see it on TV. Oh, we like that too. But will it happen? That guy has an idea.
You got your hair combed back and sunglasses on, baby. I can tell you my love for you will still be strong.
They came to me 3 days ago. Sir, would like you to sign this order. What is the order? We need 5,000 judges on the border. I said 5,000. So we put a judge on, like on the bench, federal. It takes us weeks to vet. It takes us a long time to get the judges. We're talking about one person. Here they want 5,000. I don't want judges. I want ICE and Border Patrol agents. That's what I want. And we want to tell people, I'm sorry, you're coming into the country illegally. We don't want you in the country.
Well, that's what the president wanted, and you heard him last night. Is it possible to do it? Let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, because he was here 2 hours ago with Martha McCallum.
Yeah, it seems like 2 hours ago.
Answering this very question. So the judge, he says, listen, why are we putting a judge in? Why do I need 15,000 judges? Can I just forget about it? Just send them back.
Okay, so there are parts of the Constitution that only protect citizens, and there are parts of the Constitution that protect all persons. This part, when the government wants to affect your life, your liberty, or your property, it protects all persons. So once these folks are on American soil, no matter who they are or how they got here, they're entitled to due process. Due process doesn't necessarily mean a jury trial in front of a federal judge like the president's talking about. It can mean an administrative hearing before an administrative law judge.
Those are the 5,000 he wants?
Those are the 5,000 they're talking about. The judges the president is familiar with, the president's quite correct. It takes a year from the time they find the person and all the vetting and the FBI checking us. These are lifetime appointments to that person going on the bench. This is what I went through on the state level in New Jersey. An administrative law judge is an employee of the DHS who is a judge but just hears these issues, and these trials can go on for 55, 60 minutes, and you resolve it right then and there. If we were able to prevent these folks from entering our soil, then there's no due process rights. Due process only attaches the right to a hearing and all the protections that come with it when they're physically on our soil.
Well, so Ted Cruz in his legislation, he wants to increase currently 375 judges to 750 judges. But these kids that are being detained, doesn't the law say they can only be detained for 20 days? So if these things take a year, what happens to those children?
Okay, I don't think it will take a year, but here's where I fully agree with the president. The president is 100% correct on this. The immigration laws are a weird concoction of laws written at different times, different generations, with different political pressures, and conflicting judicial opinions. This should be resolved by Congress and the president, not by the courts. The courts are only there to interpret the Constitution and protect human liberty. They are not there to set policy.
And that's why, Judge, the president wants to be able to, if families cross together, to keep the families intact at a military base until
I don't know that can be done in 20 days, even if you have 5,000 judges there.
Judge, we only have 3 facilities for families since they're going to be kept together now, and they're going to have to let people go. So essentially, the president's back to catch and release.
He is back to catch and release unless he can say to them, you really want to go through this again? How about you go home?
Right. Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if that type of a conversation would resonate with a lot of these folks who realize this just isn't going to work. Now, look, the reason there's due process is a lot of these people have a legitimate right to come here, even though they tried to come in illegally, if they can show that they are bona fide escapees from a dangerous environment, and they have the right to show that before a judge.
Then we will allow them to stay.
Yes, the law requires we let them stay under that circumstance.
Meanwhile, what will happen to the lovebirds who were at the FBI? The president was tweeting about Peter Strzok yesterday. He said the hearing of Peter Strzok and the other hating frauds at the FBI and DOJ should be shown to the public on live TV, not a closed-door hearing that nobody will see. We should expose these people for what they are. There should be total transparency. So he would like to see this upcoming Capitol Hill hearing on TV.
I could not agree with him more. This is the most profound question of our era. Was there a conspiracy in the Obama Department of Justice and FBI to prevent Donald Trump from becoming the president of the United States, and was that guy at the core of the conspiracy? Now, why he has agreed to testify is beyond me. He's an FBI agent, suspended. He's still getting paid. He's the subject of an Inspector General investigation. He's the subject of an FBI investigation. He's about to become the subject of a criminal investigation. He knows whatever he says under oath can be used against him, but he agreed to testify. We have the right to observe that testimony. If we don't, if it's just the politicians, then the Republicans will leak their narrative and the Democrats will leak their narrative. We are adults. They work for us. We can see this and form our own conclusions.
Did they cut a deal to allow him
Congressman Goodlatte on his own. I don't want to pull the heat on him, but he's the chair of the committee.
No, put the heat on him if he deserves.
Congressman Goodlatte on his own without a vote of the committee, can say this morning, okay, it's an open hearing, and we all get
and
to watch
who's the one who originally said it's okay to go behind closed doors on Friday?
That must have been Congressman Goodlatte and the majority of the committee, because it could never happen against the will of the majority.
Probably because they don't want secrets leaked out. They're worried whatever he talks about, right? Could
whatever he talks about, we're entitled to know.
James Comey, whatever you want to say about him, at least he spoke in public.
Correct.
And took every question.
Correct.
What if it's classified information, though?
Quite frankly, my understanding of this fellow Strzok is he is a character and is happy to speak in public. And it is the politicians who want to learn things that we don't.
Well, they better change that, and a lot of them watch now. And real quick, Mark Warner making those comments in Martha's Vineyard.
I hope it was a joke.
That he and Mueller, not Senator Burr, know what's going on.
Give me another glass of wine, and I'll tell you.
It's got to be a cocktail party trick. I disagree with Senator Warner on a lot of things, but the Senator Warner that I know and have worked with is an honorable guy who is worthy of keeping the country's secrets. Besides, I don't know how he could know things that only Bob Mueller knows. Mueller's not giving information to him.
Or he is.
If he is, then we have another issue to investigate.
I mean, you got to be kidding. I mean, you got to.
I hope it's a joke. I know the president was very aggravated about that. The president felt that he shouldn't be speaking in public after drinking.
Right.
Whether he was drinking or not, the joke was about wine.
And Judge, you've always been for drinking and then speaking in public, so therefore you differ with the president.
Don't get me in trouble, Brian.
Okay. All
right. Thank you, Judge. All right, Jillian's back behind you, Judge. She has some headlines for us.
Probably none of us should speak in public after drinking. Let's just use that as a blanket statement. All right, now to your headlines. Remember the Capitol Hill intern who cursed at President Trump last week? We now know she's a 21-year-old currently interning in the office of New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan. Fox News is told she's not being fired, but she was given a 1-week suspension. Her access to the Capitol has also been restricted. President Trump's supporters are outraged after a bar bans the signature Make America Great Again hats. Chicago's Replay Lincoln Park bar says they violate their dress code. Management asking patrons on Facebook to, quote, maintain a classy environment, even posting a photo of a MAGA cap next to a man with gang-related facial tattoos, saying neither are welcome. The bar's owner has not started enforcing the policy just yet. Former President George H.W. Bush gets a presidential visit from his successor. Bush 41 all smiles, showing off his Bill Clinton socks to Bill Clinton at his home in Maine. He also posted a picture of his new service dog, Sully, named for hero pilot Sully Sullenberger, who landed a plane on the Hudson River. The yellow lab will not only be a companion, but he's also able to open doors, pick things up, and get help. And isn't he adorable?
My dogs do none of that. I mean, I don't know what my dogs do.
Well, this one was trained to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jillian.
If I wasn't working full time, they'd be doing everything.
All right, 18 minutes before the top of the hour. And Janice, it's starting out to be a pretty nice day.
It is a beautiful day here in New York City. 61 right now, and we're going to get into the 70s today. Unfortunately, south of that, that's where we have the potential for some showers and thunderstorms. That has been sort of ongoing over the last couple of weeks, courtesy of a stationary front and these areas of low pressure that kind of ride this front. There's the severe threat today, so large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes across the plains, Midwest, parts of the Southeast. And then you're going to see the potential, unfortunately, for some heavy rain across those regions as well. A couple of inches in a very short period of time could lead to flash flooding. And then, man, we're not going to complain about the heat, because look at it across the Southwest, where not only is it hot, but it's dry, and those fire conditions are going to remain elevated. Back to you.
It's going to be 100 degrees today in Denver,
look at that
Colorado.
map. It's crazy. When you see the red and the pink, you know it's hot.
Not good.
The red zone. All right,
thanks,
JD,
Janice.
thank you.
Well, the media has been slamming President Trump on immigration, but what happens when they find the real problem firsthand?
Look, there's a smuggler. Espérate ahí, espérate ahí. We have
So will the media admit that they are wrong?
And President Trump calling out Harley Davidson for moving productions overseas over tariffs. Charles Payne says the president made the right move, but Harley thinks they made the right move. We're going to debate who is right.
Get your motor running.
Get your motor running.
Trump slamming the move Harley-Davidson made after moving some production overseas because they claim the trade dispute with the EU will cost them a lot of money in tariffs. The president tweeted this in response to Harley's move, saying, surprised that Harley-Davidson, of all companies, would be the first to wave the white flag, fought hard for them, and ultimately they will not pay tariffs selling into the EU, which has hurt us badly on trade, down $151 billion. Taxes, just a Harley excuse. Be patient, exclamation point, hashtag MAGA. Charles Payne hosts Making Money in Fox Business Network. We saw the market drop up to 400, then close around just over 300 points down. Harley-Davidson, why did they do what they did? Do they need such quick, desperate measures?
This isn't quick, desperate, or news. I really think President Trump has a legitimate beef here, being disappointed with Harley-Davidson. This announcement is old news. They already announced that they were going to close their Kansas City plant. They already announced they're going to open. They're in the midst of building a plant in Thailand already. In fact, management has stated their goal is to have 50% of their business outside of America by 2027. And to accomplish that, they have to build plants around the world. They're using the cloak, the cover of the tariff dispute, as a way to get some heat off themselves. Because think about this. Unions are upset. They said, how could you cut so many American jobs after you got these tax breaks? And the unions have a great point. For the first quarter, I crunched the numbers. You know how much money they saved because of President Trump's new tax plan?
How much?
$25.2 million. Extrapolate that over the year. That's $100 million. And by the way, to close a plant in Kansas City and open one in Thailand is going to cost them $200 million. So when they start talking about the cost of this kind of stuff, I just think it's disingenuous. Right. Or just acknowledge that, hey, our business in America is dying, right? Last quarter, we were down 12% in America. We were up in Europe. We want to build around the world. We can understand that as a business, but they got into the political realm of it and they're being used, and that's unfortunate.
Charlie, way to unwind that. That's excellent. Next, to Wall Street Journal, others talk about we're going after China in a friendly way, saying we're a two-pronged attack because you're stealing our technology. We're limiting it in two different ways. It's about to be announced. The Democrats are actually behind moves like this. Can the president use this opportunity to get all the country behind this move?
He could use the Harley news. The unions are upset. They went to Nancy Pelosi in May. They went to Nancy Pelosi in January, said, help us.
No, Schumer actually said, I'm for the president when it comes to China.
Listen, when it comes to China stealing intellectual property, who wouldn't be for that? You have to be the ultimate globalist snob to allow China to continue to rip us off. They've made it their statement. Made in China 2025 is pretty clear.
But they're stealing it. They're not beating us. They're stealing it.
They are stealing it. And guess what? They're to the point where they don't even have to steal it that much anymore because so much money is poured into their tech sector and they've gained so much knowledge that this might be a moot point soon.
We got to go. But how much benefit would it be for the president just to make an announcement? Guys, buckle up. I got to win long term.
I've been saying this day one. They are not articulating this message right at all. It's a shame.
All right, Charles Payne, thanks. We'll watch on FBN. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, Sarah Sanders firing back after she's kicked out of a Virginia restaurant. And there's another part to that story the media is not telling you. Plus, Occupy ICE. Protests are spreading nationwide. So we sent Todd Pyro to find out what it's all about.
You with Fox?
Yes, we are.
I don't know if you're talking to them.
Yeah, you're right. Did you not want to continue talking to me because I'm from Fox News?
Occupy ICE in Portland. Well, now it's expanding to different cities across the United States, including right here in New York City.
And that's where we send Fox and Friends correspondent Todd Pyro to see what the protesters had to say. Todd.
Good morning, guys. Their anti-rule of law message spreading throughout the country. These self-described anarchists fighting for a nation of no borders and doing everything in their power to keep ICE from doing their jobs. Why are you here?
I'm here because I think that separating parents from their children and deporting people who are just living their lives is wrong.
A pretty draconian immigration policy that, for Fox viewers, has been around for a very long time. We can start with Clinton if you want to, and Obama.
I think it's important for people to know that ICE does very evil things.
I think it's safe to say, based upon your answers and some of the signs, you want open borders, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
What would be your policy?
No borders, no nations.
What about the actual criminals? Those that you yourself would consider actual serious criminals. Would you want them to come over?
In America, that if you spend enough time in prison, you're absolved of your crime. They should be able to do what they want. And if they commit another crime, they should go to prison again.
What is the goal of your protest here?
The goal of the protest, I think, we have shut down the building for the day. So we have succeeded in doing some
weeks from some individuals getting through the detention process. How do you respond to that?
I have heard that as well.
And that is something that I am struggling with because I don't want to harm any individual person.
Can I answer that question?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Hi. Sorry, I've heard this question asked quite a few times. There's a public entrance right on Varick Street that is not being blocked at all.
So why do you think today they canceled all the court hearings because of your protest?
A little bit of a tactic. Are you with Fox News?
Yes, we are.
I don't know if you should be talking to them.
Yeah, you're right.
Did you not want to continue talking to me because I'm from Fox News?
What I'm saying is, I think it's fair to say you would enter into a question with a little bit of bias. I actually just wanted to interject on the fact that we're not blocking the public entrance. And so I wanted...
Nobody said that.
Well, I think...
I didn't say that.
Well, I think it was a little implied when you phrase a question of saying by your protest, you might be delaying the process.
No, I said I read a report that was the case. Does anybody else want to talk to me about the issues? Would you...
Bye. I want you to leave. Goodbye.
The Executive Office for Immigration Review told Fox, quote, the Varick Street Immigration Court did not hold hearings today because detained respondents were not available to appear. Judges will reset hearings that were scheduled to the earliest available date on their dockets.
Also, Todd, yesterday we did a story about how the ICE location in Portland was inundated with members of Antifa, and apparently the feds have now said unless they stop blocking the entrance, everybody's going to get arrested.
And based upon the individuals I spoke with, I do not think that they're going to take that warning and then just say, hey, we're going to stop. Two things that stood out to me of this. One, they were willing to talk to me until they found out about the Fox News thing, and then they sort of retracted, which I was the same guy in a T-shirt asking them questions. And two, I found this particularly interesting. I got one of the individuals to agree with Donald Trump in the sense that he said, I don't like a situation where we have any borders. I want a nation with no borders. That's what Trump says.
Yeah.
So
ICE is in charge of enforcement, not policy.
Correct.
That's Washington, D.C.
100%.
All right. Todd, thank you very much. Good job.
Well, guess what? Hillary Clinton still isn't done complaining about the election, taking her grievances with our democracy to the world stage.
My personal experience with winning 3 million more votes, but still losing. And we will leave